spinning record like a mess already. He came to us by incredible fortune of luck, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm very glad we were able to get him here. He gave an incredible speech at the first Alcon. We're all sorry he was at the second Alcon, but we're able to get him here. Ladies and gentlemen, John Bermuda Schwartz.
Hello. How to work this. Okay. There will.
While they're adjusting that, we actually have a little introduction for John from the Smothers Brothers.
I know what's next. Why don't we do the song? Why don't we not do all of my songs? But why don't we do a song? To tell me. When I think of it, I'm going to say it. But say.
I like to sing long-time blues.
This is impersonation I like to do.
You can't do impersonations. Everybody sounds the same.
No, I have, a lot of guys can do impersonations, but I've never done impersonation, but I like to do it.
Are you as good as Frank Gorshin?
I'm better than Frank Gorshin.
Better than Frank Gorshin?
Twice as good as Frank Gorshin.
All right, what is your best impersonation?
Sammy Davis Jr.'s impersonation. I'm better than anybody impersonations. I'd like to do my impersonation of John Schwartz. Hi, I'm John Schwartz.
How am I supposed to know if that sounds like John Schwartz or not? I don't even know him.
Well, let's do Long Time Blues.
Wait a minute, I don't want to do long-time blues.
Let's do Long Time.
You stand up here and interrupt my introduction with a stupid impersonation. Hi, I'm John Schwartz.
Pretty good, wasn't it?
No.
Hi, I'm John Schwartz. Well, this, I'll wait till everyone gets here. Okay, this is, I put together some notes. I don't know how many of you were at Alcon a couple of years ago. I covered all of Al's career up to that point. Had a lot to talk about. Not a whole lot has happened in the last couple of years, but I did bring some other videos. I want to talk about some other cool stuff. It's not going to be strictly about Al. This is a dementia convention, so if you've met Ruben, you know about dementia, probably. You know what? No, Dr. Demento, I guess, is more about it. I want to thank Bill Putt for putting this together. I want to thank Jeff Morris for. He didn't see that. I want to thank Jeff Morris for Tim Ryan, Luke, Stephanie, Susan for picking me up at the airport and keeping everything secret and all that stuff. I got some very loose notes. I haven't rehearsed this. I haven't really gone through it. There's stuff that I know for sure is out of order. Videos are out of order. Everything's out of order, but you'll be able to hopefully put it all together. Some of the video quality isn't great. Some of it doesn't sound very good. Some of it's probably not worth showing. And I'll ask for questions as I go. So let me back up out of that. It's been a while since I actually talked into a mic to anybody. Okay, first, dementia, Ruben, okay. Because I just wrote a bunch of stuff down, printed it out, I'm just looking at it kind of for the first time now. For me, you guys know I'm Weird Al's drummer for 20 plus years now. But the dementia, the weirdness, the love for wacky stuff and the involvement with all the wacky music and the novelty and all that, and the excellent sound people. It didn't start with Al. It didn't start in 1980. Actually, not only his novelty and comedy and that kind of stuff been around for a long time, but even in my family, my parents had Yogi Jorgensen, stuff like that. Alan Sherman, they had Napoleon the 14th. Actually, I think I asked them to buy that. My brother was into country music, so he listened to Homer and Jethro. There's a long history of, in addition to Spike Jones and Tom Lehrer and the Smothers Brothers, who did a wonderful impression of me. Stan Freberg, and my history with listening to that kind of stuff goes way back. It was probably more prevalent then, when there were fewer types of music and fewer people in the world, to latch on to. Smothers Brothers and Homer and Jethro and guys like that. And Napoleon XIV was just a groundbreaking thing when that came out. A lot of people thought that was a very sick song. They're coming to take me away, but I loved it just the same. Basically, we're going to start out with a video. Before I do, are there any questions? Just anything burning questions, just real quick. Anything?
Why?
I'm sorry?
Why?
Because. All right, Jeff, if you will. The first video, again, as I said, this is not strictly about Al. The first video is a Dr. Demento profile that was done by real people back in, there it is now. It was done back in 1982. And Al's in there a little bit, but it's mostly about Demento. I don't know how many of you would have seen this. I know I didn't show it at Alcon. Chris back there is old enough to have actually, you know, there you go. I am. I was there, of course. I'll cue you on the. I'll cue you on the film. Who's running the video, by the way, real quick, so I know who to talk. Jeff, are you doing that? Yeah. Okay. Not yet. That's okay. I'm cluing you guys in so you know what you're seeing. So first is the Dr. Demento real people profile. Next, you guys probably know that in the very beginning we went out with Dr. Demento as his musical act. We didn't start touring on his own. This is the segment after the real people is the portion of the show where we've already played. Dr. Demento comes out and sings Shaving Cream, and we're playing behind him. So you got Al playing accordion and everyone's swaying and doing, you know, we're playing behind him. And the segment after that is just a couple of months later. We had split off from him on a big stage and background singers and, you know, big deal, extra guitar player, keyboard player we added for this show. And we're doing Nature Trail to Hell, which probably most of you didn't get a chance to ever hear live. The sound on it is probably, I'm just going to preface, all the video sound is going to be horrible. All of these are copies of copies of copies in a lot of cases. And, you know, but it's probably stuff you wouldn't see anywhere else. So first video, Demento and us, and then us without Demento. And roll it.
Who the hot disc jockey of the time was?
That's right. For me, in the 60s, it was Murray the K. In the 70s, it was
Wolfman Jack.
Very good. And it's beginning to look like the 80s are going to be known as the age of Dr. Demento. He's the man, you know, sure. He's the man who popularized such records as the Psycho Chicken, Pencil Neck Geek, and the Cockroach that ate Cincinnati.
That sounds like my kind of music. I wonder if he'd play my favorite song, I'll Love You 8 Nights a Week.
I love you 8 nights a week. Is that a record?
Well, it's not a record, John, but it's a darn good average. Right, sir?
Anyway, I went to visit the legendary Dr. Demento.
All right, Dimensions in the Vintage. What time is it?
It's funny time. People from all over the country have been asking us to do a story on this man, their favorite disc jockey, who broadcasts his lunacies across the radio waves of America each week.
Coming to you from under the strawberry trees of
Well, I listened to his show on the radio too, and now I was going to get to meet and interview the infamous funny music man of the airwaves, Dr. Demento.
Hey, come on in, you're just in time.
Hi! I arrived at the studio at the prearranged time, but instead of getting an interview, Dr. Demento gave me a hat and an accordion. He said he couldn't talk just now because he had a show to do.
Here we go. Shh, quiet on the set. Here we go. We got a phone call for number 4. And now on the Dr. Demento Show.
Just when I thought the crazy records were over and we get a chance to talk, a fellow named Weird Al Yankovic showed up at the studio and Dr. Demento put him on the air live. The doctor told me he puts lots of weird people on the show, which made me feel like I fit right in. I thought maybe Weird Al would talk talk with me for a minute, but he said he couldn't. He had a performance to do. Well, I figured if you can't beat him, join him. So I joined in with the Dementites, a loyal group of young people who helped the good doctor put on his show. It was getting late, and there wouldn't be time to interview Demento that day, and to really get to know the true man underneath his demented exterior. So the next day I set out again, this time to Dr. Demento's house to finally get that interview. However, when I arrived, the doctor was rushing to a special swap meet where he gets most of the old and rare records which he has collected since he was a kid. When we got to the swap meet, he was only interested in talking to the other record buffs, so I just tagged along.
Thank you very much.
Next, I followed Demento to a record club where I thought he might finally give me a glimpse into the real man. But all he talked about was music.
Thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the continuing dance mania of America.
His lecture was fascinating, but I couldn't help hoping that Demento would hurry up because I still hadn't gotten my interview. When we finally did reach his house again, the doctor picked up his fan mail and we went inside to sit and talk. Once inside, I couldn't help but notice there was no place to sit and talk. Dr. Demento's entire house was filled with records. So rather than have an interview, the doctor offered to show me his record collection, which he estimated to be about 150,000. But first, he put on a little mood music for the tour. We started in the den. Moved into his office.
The doctor is out.
Next to the
Despite what people may think, I play no dirty records on my show.
There were records everywhere, so I joked to the good doctor. Surely he didn't have any records in the...
Wait. Garage!
For the interview. Tell me, what is the most important thing in your life?
Records! 150,000 and I want more! Send me your records!
Besides records, what are your interests?
This is a song called Shaving Cream, and this is certainly one of the most famous songs in the history of the Dr. Demento show.
What about your childhood?
Well, the first record that was my very own was Lavender Blue Dilly Dilly, sung by Burla. When RCA first introduced the 45 in 1949, they made 7 different colors.
Well, I'm sorry, folks. I never did get that deep interview with the weird and wonderful Dr. Demento. But one thing I did find out about the man, his whole life is music.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away. Ha-ha. The funny farm where life is beautiful all the time. And I'll be happy to see those
Well, Weird Al, I love those modern, up-to-date rock and roll songs you and the guys do, but how about getting back to your roots and playing me a waltz in the key of D on the accordion? Thank you. A demented song I will sing you, a classic of poetry and wit. Last night when I went into my bathroom, I stepped in a big pile of shaving cream. Be nice and clean, shave every day and you'll always look keen. Last Saturday I went out jogging. I like to keep physically fit. But when I looked down at my Nikes, yeah, the soles were all covered with shaving cream. Curb your dog, please. Shave every day and you'll always look keen. Last Monday we went to the playground to try out my new catcher's mitt. I asked you to throw me a fastball and you threw me a big lump of shaving restaurant, I hate to be picking a nit. But waiter, I ordered cauliflower yogurt, and you brought me a bowl full of shaving cream. Be nice and clean, shave every day, and you'll always look clean. I've been shoveling snow all this winter, and I sure do not like it one bit. But at least snow is pure, white, and clean, folks, and it sure does beat shoveling. Shaving cream, be nice and clean, shave every day, and you'll always look clean. We were here last June on tour. About that time, I went swimming in the Potomac River. I wanted to cool off a bit, but accidentally I swallowed some water. But gosh, it tasted like shaving cream. Be nice and clean, shave every day, and you'll always look clean. I'm fed up with all politicians. And Republicans and Democrats, I spit. They promise you peace and prosperity. And what do they give you? Be nice and clean, shave every day, and you'll always look clean. I bought me a cigarette lighter just to keep all my Lucky Strikes lit. Well, I thought I would get me a fire, but instead I got handfuls of shaving cream. Be nice and clean, shave every day, and you'll always look clean. And now, folks, my song, it is ended. I think it is time I should split. But don't worry, because I'm going to be right back. I'm going to be playing more of my funny five favorites. I'm going to be showing more of my fine embedded movies. And Weird Al Yankovic and his band are going to be playing more of their great rock and roll songs. And in the meantime, you can enjoy lots more of the wonderful drinks here at the Wax Museum, and maybe even go out there in the lobby and buy yourselves a limited edition, available one time only, Dr. Demento and Weird Al Yankovic t-shirts. Say yeah! If any of you feel offended, stick your head in a river of shaving cream. Be nice and clean, shave every day, and you'll always look clean. I'm back. Thank you very much.
Okay, I figured most of you hadn't ever seen that or heard that. That was well, you know, I meant to discuss things to look for in these clips. Now you're going to have to remember the last 15 minutes. And I really have never read these. I wrote them, I just haven't, you know, written but not proofed or whatever. I'll start from the front. In the Demento profile, that black car he was driving, for those of you who know, that was Al's Plymouth Belvedere. Back in, and the very first song he sent to, under his own name that he sent to Dr. Demento was Belvedere Cruisin'. So that's the Belvedere for which, okay. The shaving cream segment, that was, again, that was in the days when we were part of Dr. Demento's presentation and we were like the musical relief or whatever we were. And then this last thing, Nature Trail to Hell, that was at it wasn't at the Greek Theater, but it was at a big theater in Los Angeles, in Burbank, actually, up in the hills. And we had background singers, some of whom sang on the records. Lisa Popeil, I think, was one of them. Had an extra guitar player, had Pat Regan on keyboards, who actually joined us in '85, I think, on the road. And I don't know if you could tell in this, but we were wearing 3D glasses, like a retina, yeah, which was probably really, you know, funny to us on stage, but I don't think anybody could actually see it. The screams in the middle part, that was me. See, I meant to tell you this stuff so you would watch for it and look for it. But also for those of you taping the presentation, that's all well and good. Unfortunately, some of the white lines and things going through there, that's the problem here. That's a Dementia 2001 affectation. So when I see this stuff out there, I'll know where it came from. Because some of these things, I'm the only one that's got copies. So there's some really great stuff that sounds really bad, so I'll know for sure where that came from. Okay, so this is 1984. I'm going to go back to 1965 now. I'm telling you, this is really out of order. So you got to jump around with me here. I really, you know, I didn't even put it together that well, let alone to decide if it was in order. I started, yeah, I forgot that I had submitted that question. I actually wrote that I started drumming lessons in 1965 when I was 1. No, and I had actually taken accordion lessons. So for whoever got that, that's a good, you know, I mean, it's sort of an ironic guess, but I mean, I actually did take accordion. And I think the first time I picked up the accordion in front of Al and played something really bad on it, he was very impressed. That I didn't remember anything from when I took lessons. Now, getting back to just dementia in general and how I was basically, you know, long before I met Al, I was fairly warped. Now, a lot of you guys, and probably the guys especially, made, you know, back in the old days, we'd make tapes at home, just wacky, funny tapes. Now, there was nowhere to send them. You know, now everyone makes tapes and you know where to send them. You put them out on the internet. I mean, there's outlets for these things like never before. Well, back in 1970, some friends and I just, you know, we made wacky, silly, stupid tapes, and they're so stupid that I absolutely won't listen to them. These are not part of my project, which some of you know about, to commit everything I've ever done to CD. Those are not going on CD. I'm not getting rid of them just yet, but someday when they're, you know, when they're completely useless, I'll throw them out and you know, woe is me then, but they're really bad. Now the tapes that you know, guys are making today are great, so you know, it's a whole different, 30 years ago was a different deal. I made tapes of everything. I made tapes of the first groups I was in, the last groups I was in, groups I was never in. I mean, I archived and recorded and took photos and made notes about pretty much everything I did in relation to music. I mean, that's partly, well, that's exactly what the webpage is based on, are all my records of everything I ever did with Al. I have another page that's, you know, got some of my other stuff on it as well. But I always kept track of that stuff, always made tapes of things, I always kept all those tapes. Now my first experience hearing Dr. Demento, I grew up in Los Angeles, lived in Los Angeles for the last 32, 33 years. My first experience hearing him was in 1971. Now he was very calm back then, and I was discussing with Jeff, who's you know, the preeminent Dr. Demento archivist. You know, I said, hey, did you bring any, yes. I said, did you bring any tapes of him from 30 years ago? No, didn't you? No. So we spaced, but anyway, he was pretty calm. Even what you saw in 1984, he'd come a long way. Back in the 70s, he was very, very calm. You know, no one was sending homemade wacky stuff to him. Well, until me, actually. I was one of the first people to ever send homemade music to Dr. Demento. Now, I didn't find, I'll tell you, you can clap in a minute. I'll tell you about, not that I don't remember, I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. Before I get into how I got connected with Dr. Demento, and eventually Al, God, I should really have read this before. More of the dementia I was into as I was growing up, as I was a teenager. I don't know how many of you would remember the Credibility Gap. Okay. And Credibility Gap had Mike McKeon, David L. Lander, Harry Shearer, three guys of whom have went on to do a whole bunch of great stuff, and with the exception of David L. Lander, keep busy today. And also a guy named Richard Beebe, who actually, he had like the official announcer type voice. I mean, even more so than Harry Shearer did, I think. He had like a great, deep, almost a Don Pardo kind of a voice. And he went on to do news, actually, I think at KMET, oddly enough. And but Credibility Gap was one of those kind of, they were sort of like fire sign theater, I guess. No fire sign theater?
I've heard
So, okay. But with music and other different things going on. Now, Credibility Gap also, the way I discovered them, they used to, on a station in LA called KRLA, which is an AM station, they used to do the Credibility Gap news every evening. Now, they pre-recorded this stuff, but it was always based on current events. It was probably a day or two old. And it was on at 6 p.m. They did 15 minutes every evening. And it was just, if you can imagine, just nonstop comedy and satire and voices and the whole thing. And one of the things I heard on there, one of the very first things I heard was they were talking about Woodsy Owl. Now, this is 1971. And this is about Woodsy Owl becoming the new environmental symbol, and about the government having this dilemma about whether to use an owl or whether to use this kind of like guy in a big Boy Scout type uniform called Johnny Horizon. Anyway, I thought, well, we obviously know what happened to both of them. But I thought that was, this whole Woodsy Owl thing was pretty cool. So I really, for some, at 14 or whatever, you really get into something for no apparent reason. You get something in your head, you can't get it out. So I became this big Woodsy Owl fan, and discovered a song called The Ballad of Woodsy Owl. That's not the first thing I sent to Demento, but keep in mind I've got this like sort of in the back of my head, and I've got this whole Woodsy aura going on. Anyway, Dr. Demento, because he was playing a certain amount of kind of rare stuff and odd things, there was a pretty finite amount of stuff for him to play on a show. It's like listening to an oldies station. You don't hear any new oldies. I mean, that's the oldies, classic rock. There's no new classic rock. You get what you get, and that's why you hear stuff every day. Same things every day. Well, he was playing, his Funny Five or Top Five or whatever it was at the time. The #1 song for the longest time was Pico and Sepulveda. And I guess he thought this was just getting redundant. So he held a contest, and it was the Roll Your Own Pico and Sepulveda. I should have written this down. It was some kind of, there were a lot of kind of marijuana references back then. And he basically invited listeners to send in their recordings. And this was 1973. So in those days, in school bands, you didn't have really even piano players or guitar players. It was orchestras. It was band instruments, horns, violins, stuff, trombone, sax, things like that. So I got together a bunch of my buddies, some of whom I'd been playing in bands with, some of whom I recruited specifically for this recording to send in this contest. One of the guys on there, and probably a few of you have heard me mention, was Richard Elliott. I went to school with Richard Elliott, who became a very well-known sax player. He's kind of, I don't want to say he's a poor man's Kenny G, but he's like in the top 5. If you think, I know sax players, Kenny G, and the next guy you'd probably name is Richard Elliott. Or Dave Koz, maybe, but okay. Or maybe another guy. But Richard Elliott would definitely be like in the top 3 or 4 or 5. So he's on there. So there's a little bit of notoriety there. And I reminded him of that when I saw him again like 20 years later, and he was, no. So sent the recording in, and we came in 2nd place out of like over 100 recordings, which I thought was pretty cool. But there's more. No, there's 2 more things. The first thing is, we did an instrumental. We didn't really sing. We sort of sang a cappella at the beginning, and I know if you end up with one of the binge and purge binging, one of Joe Krause's deals, he's got the 3 recordings I sent to Dr. Demento. The first of which was Pico and Sepulveda. So we opened up with this kind of a vocal intro, very bad. This stuff would never pass today, believe me. And then it was an instrumental. Barry, Dr. Demento, used that for the intro for his show because he could talk over it for quite some time, actually, in LA. And the show, I don't think, was syndicated at that point, so it was just LA. And eventually, Roto-Rooter Good Time Band, who knew Demento. Tom Hensley asked my brother if we wanted to go see Dr. Demento do his live show, do a show on KMET. So I said, yeah, cool. So I went and met Dr. Demento for the first time probably in the fall of 1980. Wasn't when I met Al, and Al wasn't there that night. But the doctor asked if I would come back, if I wanted to come back and do an interview about the stuff that I had sent in, seeing as how I was one of the first people to actually send in homemade music, and he played it. I said, I would love to do that. So came back, that was September 14th, 1980, and which is when I met Al, and when we recorded Another One Rides the Bus. And then we haven't seen really Demento since, so thanks. And, no, we did see him again, actually. We see him a lot, in fact. I have another video segment coming up, which I will explain beforehand. Before I do, are there any questions about anything I just mentioned? Yes, Tony?
Oh, well, not about what you mentioned. Any chance the Ask Al page will come back?
No. Of course there's a chance. You know what, it will come back when something's happening. You know, I don't think of all the unique questions that have been posted or sent in, I don't think there's even enough to have filled up a month. You know, and that's the problem with the Ask Al page, in case any of you do not know what happened. Basically, there were just too many questions coming in that were the same, and or were just not appropriate to answer, or had been answered already. And you guys had run out of questions because we weren't doing anything to raise any new questions. So, you know, there will be some new questions, you know, by the time we start the new album, and it's out. You guys will want to know, you know, how we did this, or why, you know, why we parried the Backstreet, or whoever it is. And, for instance. No, actually, we have not started any work on anything. There's nothing, you know. Al's busy in his new place, and you know. Not conceptually new place. I mean, he bought a house. Not that whole marriage, whatever. A while ago, yeah. Okay, so any other questions, and we're going to get to the next film segment. Yes, Dave.
In the video segments, who was that guy singing Another One Rides the Bus with Al?
That was Damascus. Yeah. We actually haven't seen much of him either. We don't know what became of Damascus, whose real name is Dan Hollenby. Okay, you guys can't verify that either. Good.
Holombre!
I'm sorry?
I think it's Holombre.
He probably put an R in there. I wouldn't be a bit surprised. I haven't talked to him in 20 plus years. I have no idea. This is as opposed to 90. Now you guys know we do it's not called a food medley anymore, but we do a medley with mostly food songs. At the time it was all food songs. And it evolves a lot. Now these food songs come from, they're either songs that we used to do full versions of, and you know, a new album comes out, new songs, and some things get relegated to the medley, some things get tossed out altogether. Some of these are things where, in some cases, he sought permission and didn't get it, or didn't even want to bother to ask. And there's some other things where he just wrote a song just to be in the food medley, and literally just a verse and a chorus. You know, and some of these things there's no more. There is a full-length version of Chicken Pot Pie, by the way, but which only I have because we rehearsed it to record it before we didn't get permission. So there is actually there's lyrics to the whole song. This is a medley from 1985. I got to preface this with, this is really bad sound. Now, this was at the Greek Theater in LA. For some reason, there's this kind of like a pre-echo, weird, high-end grit thing. You'll hear it. It's pretty bad, so I apologize for that. But we did such favorites of the day as, and remember, you know, although the medleys usually reflect what's going on, you know, within a year or two of memory. So we got Thompson Twins in there, Moldy Now for Hold Me Now, Doctor, and his name is Bernie. The Simple Minds song, Don't You Forget About Meat, which was actually one of my two favorite all-time songs ever to play with Al, was that. Because it ended really quick. We only just did a little quick bit of it. Got the ill-fated Culture Club Make Me Steak number 3. Not mistake, make me conjure a steak for me, steak number 3. Okay. So we're ready for this. So this is the food medley from 1985, and again I apologize for the audio on this. There's like a 15-second gap, so okay.
Right now, we'd like to do a medley of every song ever written in the history of the world. See what
That was, you may have noticed a very young Steve J. in front of a young Bermuda next to a young Jim. Okay. That was when Jim wore his hair short in the first place, except he had sort of grown this pompadour weird thing on the front. Well, I had one too, so that's what you did in '85. Okay, so 1985. Okay, let's go back to 1981 now that we've jumped around a bit. Don't worry, there's more. There's a worse one coming up here in a second. So 1981, I did the recording with Al and met Demento, did my interview, which is another interview which also will not get put to CD. That was really terrible. Al resumed school, finished up school, came home to LA in January of 1981. We recorded Happy Birthday, a couple other things, put out the Placebo EP, as it came to be known, and Al needed a job. So Dr. Demento, who was syndicated by Westwood One at the time, actually for many years, got Al a job in the mailroom. That was the famous mailroom job that he had, was at Westwood One, who syndicated Demento. Well, he was just kind of slipped in there. Well, one day I needed a job too, so Al says, hey, there's another guy in there who's working with me. He says, he's walking down front to quit. Do you want a job? I said, sure. So I came down there and I worked in the mailroom with Al. And I moved around the company a bit, did some other things. By 1983, and we'd already cut our first album by the time I started working there. It was just kind of in the can. Nobody had picked up on it yet. Scotty Brothers really weren't in the picture yet. So 1983, we did our first tour. We both left. It was about a month-long tour. And I came back, stayed at Westwood One, and moved on, did some other things there, and actually stayed there for about 14 years. So that's a case of Dr. Demento very directly having, something, I met Al through him, and I got a long-term career job type thing that kept me going between tours. It was all Dr. Demento. So, dementia is, of course, very important to me. It means a lot. If there were no Dr. Demento, well, none of us would be here, but I certainly wouldn't be here. You guys might be here, talking about something else, but not me. Okay, so that's like 83. Now let's go to 90. Skip ahead to 90. Not much happened. Al did UHF and all that other stuff. Kind of, there was sort of nether years there where nothing was happening. Kind of no tours, no albums, no nothing. But one of the things we did in 1991, was Dr. Demento's 20th anniversary. And there was a live show. You could, I'll tell them that you guys played. Not long enough, but you haven't seen the footage yet, so don't. Now, the among other things, this is where we met Ruben, so it does have some sad memories as well. But it was a lot of fun. It's the first time he's really done an extravaganza like that. On his own, and it was televised, and it was put together and ran on Comedy Channel before there was Comedy Central, I guess. And the premise was, we really weren't the stars of the show. It was kind of, Barry was the star of the show. And we put together a little orchestra. Al's band backed up all the musical artists, except like Uncle Floyd, who played his own piano, stuff like that. But we basically backed up everyone. Bobby Boris Pickett, Barnes and Barnes. Now, if any of you ever saw the special, there's a bunch of stuff that did not air. I have that tape. And I'll get to that in a sec. This is like way out of order, I'm sorry. Eddie Lawrence, the guy that does The Old Philosopher, and Benny Bell. Not his last appearance, but it was nice to see him, and he was still pretty spry. I didn't bring any Benny tonight though, but Uncle Floyd, Bill Frenzer from Ogden Edsel, sang Dead Puppies and another song which I brought with us backing him up, and then of course Al. We sort of finished off the night. We played 4 songs, 2 of which aired, another of which I showed at Alcon, of us doing Another One Rides the Bus and the Bus Chant, as it was known then, and one other song which I didn't bring tonight, but that's okay. So I'll tell you about the upcoming clips in a second, just real quick, so I don't forget to ask for questions. Are there any questions about anything that we did so far? Anything you're curious about? Something you saw, something you heard, something? No? Yes?
You said something about that there was 2 of your all-time favorite songs you did with Al. You mentioned one. What was the other one? Yes,
that's if there's time, if I don't talk long enough, and we don't run over time, that's in another segment that I haven't really even. I brought another medley. So, but anyway, that doesn't. That's not. You guys have probably seen that one. A lot of you. Okay, so this is. We actually did 2 nights. We did one night in San Francisco. We did another night in Pasadena, which is LA, and that night was taped for the Comedy Channel broadcast, which was an hour-long show. Well, I've got a 95-minute tape by itself of nothing but the show, before it was cut. I mean, it very easily could have been a 2-hour show. And I brought a couple of clips. The first one is, this is not with us, but this is Tiny Tim doing I Got You Babe, the Sonny and Cher, or he does a duet. Now, you have it on an album, but here he is doing it. Not yet. There's Sheb Woolley, who did Purple People Eater. I didn't bring that because that aired. What I brought was, he does a song called Sons of Mitches. There's a story about, he doesn't have a hair lip. No, there's a story about why it's, and we're backing him up on that if you listen carefully. And then the last of the 3 segments is Bill Frenzer doing a song called Pine Cones. And it's kind of a jazzy, I don't know if it's out, if you heard it.
It's on the,
Is it on
the
something?
best of CD for Ogden Edsel.
Oh, okay. God, I hope it's not our version. It was atrocious. Okay. But anyway, that's on here. And I mean, this stuff fits in, 1, because it's Demento, and 2, you rarely hear the band doing something other than with Al. So this is, 2 of these things are with Al, and actually have something else that, or I'm sorry, are with Al's band. And I've got something else that's with us too that again, nobody has seen. I've got the only tape. Okay, so we're ready. This is the Dr. Demento 20th anniversary live show outtakes. Eventually. That may be longer than 50.
My friend, because you've been so nice tonight, it's a little duet with myself.
Well, I don't know, I guess it's true. You got me, and baby, I got you. Babe, I got you, babe. But now you say hello, won't pay the rent. Before it's earned, our money is always spent. Well, I don't know, I got no plot. Still, I'm sure of all the love we got. I got you, babe. I got flowers in the spring. I got you to wear my ring. When I'm sad, you're a clown. When I get scared, you're always around. Some people say your hair is too long. I don't care. With you, I can't go wrong. So put your little hand in mine. There ain't no mountain in the valley we can't climb. A valley we can't climb. Babe, I got you, babe, I got you, babe.
Here's a new song I wrote about some friends. I mean, Doctor, see what you think about this. It's called The Mitchells. Oh, you can hook on if you want to.
Grandpa's name is Mitchell, and I'm Mitchell number 3. Cause Daddy's Mitchell Jr., so it's Mitch and me. And they say that the apple never falls far from the tree. Then a bad one spoiled the barrel, and the barrel fell on me. Dun, 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 dun. We're just rotten sons of Mitches to the core. People yell when we walk through the door. While they won't mount to a hill of beans, their destiny is in their cheese. They're rotten sons of bitches to the core. It's a custom of the family, when the family was begun, to hang the name of Mitchell on every firstborn son. And when my baby boy grows up, I'll be as proud as Punch, cause he'll be the biggest son of a Mitch in the whole darn Mitchell bunch. son of a bitches to the core. People yell when we walk through the door. They're apples off the same old tree that's written in their history. They're rotten sons of bitches to the core. Yes, they're rotten sons of bitches to the core.
That's good, Chef. Got any water over there, Doc?
Sorry about the time on the bottom.
Feels
Sorry.
like 4 a.m. on Hollywood Boulevard. Before the street sweepers sweep up. Yeah, thank you So good to be tonight. Helps me forget about her. That's why I'd like to dedicate this next song to the girl that sent me a Dear John letter on a fax machine. Well, she did use a plain paper copier, I'll give her that much. Goes out to you wherever you are in the steno pool. Our life together was so lovely. How you doing? Somehow everything must change. Oh, I know I'll always love her. Somehow we'll never be the same. Pine cones, my baby loves pine cones. She won't leave those pine cones alone. Yeah, leave her pining for those pine cones. Ooh, she's got them scattered all over our home. She's got the pine cones in the kitchen, pine cones in the hall, pine cones in the winter, spring, summer, and pine cones in the fall. Yeah, pine cones, she's dreaming of pine cones, not leather or designer phones. And I'm wondering if there's something I should do. Well, the doctor said, Bill, it's a stage that she'll be going through. Well, pine cones, your baby loves pine cones more than she loves you. The pine cones, my baby loves pine cones. Fruit of the evergreen. Pine cones, the way she loves pine cones, bordering on the obscene. Yeah, she got the pine cones when we jazz the sign, pine cones when we dine, pine cones in our bed at night, pine cones all the time. Well, pine cones, she's dreaming of pine cones, not leather or designer phones, but that pine cone sweater is looking much better to me. Can't you see what the doctor said, Billy? It's a stage that she'll be going through. She loves those pine cones more than she loves you. If it's true, she loves the pine cones more than she loves you. Pine cones in my shoes. Thanks a lot. You've been great.
They're doing some things there and trying to get a better picture. So. A lovely shade of blue. Actually, that was the end of that segment anyway. But that was Bill Frenzer from Ogden Edsel. You may have noticed the music stands with the little Dr. Demento on them and stuff. I have one of those at home. So those are pretty rare. Okay, back to now from 1991 we go to 1999 and. This is back to Al. Oh, we sort of, we do some demented things on stage and some wacky things. I mean, it's, who here, you guys were, who here was at the show when we played Albuquerque Live? Okay. No, be proud, it's okay. I was there, believe me. I didn't bring that. No, and I'll tell you why I didn't. I'll tell you specifically why. Well, first off, here's what happened. First off, you have to see the entire encore to understand why Albuquerque's funny. Otherwise, it's just us playing Albuquerque. That wasn't the good part. What we did, this would have been like a 40-minute deal had I brought this, and it's not. Believe me, you guys wouldn't sit through it either. What happened was, we basically, first off, we never played the song as a band. Really, everyone. We record stuff separately. Al comes in and sings it later, all that. So we actually had to rehearse the song, which we did that day. And I don't even know that we got all the way through it, honestly. I mean, we know the song, we just had never played it. So we decided rather than just kind of give it away, because we knew that there were people, you know, Marty Lake had come out and Luke had come out and all that, and you know, people had come there specifically to hear us play Albuquerque, in Albuquerque, thinking that we're going to play Albuquerque. And we basically sort of denied it during the whole show, and then the encore went on and we continued to deny it some more by playing everything but. And then finally, about 20 minutes in, Al said, well, you may know that I've written a little song about your town here, and it goes like this. And then he goes into this other song that he wrote that afternoon about Albuquerque. It had nothing to do with the song on the album. And we did Inagata de Vida, and we did. So finally, now the audience is getting, you know, really, really upset at this point, because they realize they're being jerked around. After about 30 minutes of like nothing happening, and finally, by the time we played Close to You by the Carpenters, they're booing, and it's just really. And right after that, we go into Albuquerque and did, and then sort of forget where we were towards the end, that part of the song where he forgets what's going on. We actually started over. So Albuquerque went from an 11-minute song to about a 15 or 16-minute song. So we did about a 2 hour and 40-minute show that night. Al blew his voice out. And we went to Denver shortly thereafter, where he basically limped through a couple of songs, and you know, I mean, unfortunately, that audience suffered because he just screamed out the song. But that was probably the wackiest thing. Was basically just up there having fun, playing things we'd only played once ever in our lives. Some of them we had never even played once. You know, we just said, yeah, well, we'll go into Inagata. Now Ruben, big keyboard part, he had never heard the song. He didn't know. So Al's trying to show him how to play Inagata. I could have played Inagata. So that was 99. Now we go back to 87. This is great, the way this hops around. Yeah, this is another case where this was at Knott's Berry Farm. This is for their annual Halloween haunt, and this is like 3 or 4 weekends worth of acts. It's usually the same act. This year it was us. We also did it in 1981. This year, though, we were put with a guy, and I'm going to leave. I told somebody here who it was, so don't say it, but see if you recognize this guy. This guy comes out and he does a character called Ramon Azteca. And I don't think he was known for the character. This was just something else he did. And this is in the middle of our show, so the first thing you're going to see in this next clip is Al introducing this guy, Ramon Azteca. Now, this is the band also backing this guy. And you'll see what he does in a second. And it's kind of hard to tell at first, but he's kind of in this bad flamenco outfit. He's got this pompadour that comes out to here, kind of like Jim had in '85. But this is like a serious. It's like a bicycle seat or something. It's just ridiculous. It's very overblown. And I'm going to leave you guys to figure out who it is. Obviously, it's not Al, because Al walks on stage at the end, and this guy's there. So it's not Al. It's not any of us. The guy on keyboards substituted for our then gone keyboard player, Pat Regan. This is a guy named Scott Walton. I don't know if he's in the picture much, but actually after these shows, he was not in the picture at all. We never used him again. Quick story about that and why we go through so many keyboard players. While I'm on the subject. Al, in the beginning, played just accordion. Then we recorded the In 3D album. There's keyboard on there. So he brings the keyboard out, and he plays keyboards. Then by 1985, things were starting to get a little more complicated. I guess there were songs with keyboards and accordion. I don't know. So we got a guy named Pat Regan, who had actually recorded with us on In 3D, I think. So he was kind of our guy, and he came out on tour with us in '85. Came out and started the Monkees tour with us in '87. Knowing that he was leaving, but he came out anyway and had this other guy sort of on the side. He says, oh yeah, I'll give him the charts, you know. If I have to leave the tour early, I'll make sure I'm covered. Well, he knew he was leaving. He came out for a couple of weeks. This other guy, Scott Walton, comes out. And Scott was really not up to Pat's, you know, standards. And we lived through the rest of the tour with Scott. He eventually turned into a really good keyboard player, but not then, not for us. So that was the last time we ever used Scott. And later we used some different guys in the studios, a guy named Brad Buxer, another guy named Kim Bullard, who we actually worked with. Kim and I and Al put together Germs for the last album. So, and Kim has worked with Trent Reznor, so we went to him and cooked up all that stuff. I brought in a bunch of samples, and Al brought stuff in, and you know, Kim said, no, this is how Trent does it. So we were doing the right thing, you know, by going to Trent's guy. So that's why Germs sounds so much like Nine Inch Nails.
That's right.
It's Trent's guy who basically did it. So that's Kim Bullard. Oh, he's also the guy in the Money for Nothing video with the blonde hair that you see for a half a second. So Pat's gone. This guy in here, Scott Walton, he's gone. Kim Bullard, we can't afford Kim. You know, we can afford Ruben. That's why Ruben's been doing this for 10 years. He said yes when we offered him his pay. Anyway, so coming up, this is. I'll leave you guys to guess who you. There's not any serious close-ups of this guy, but you might figure it out. And he sort of figures into Aldum. He actually does figure into Aldum very much. But this is a situation where this is not Al, but it is the band, and it's a wacky thing, and it's definitely demented. And it's Ramon Azteca. Roll it. Hurry up. This may be a long gap. One of these is a long gap. Sound would be good. He's just...
Porque no quiero saber, porque el libro es aquí. Gracias. 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 Gracias and welcome to the Ramon Azteca portion of the show. My name is Ramon Azteca, and this is my portion of the show. You know, the best part about my portion of the show is women. You're a beautiful woman. What is your name? Maureen. Maureen. You smell like warm grass. Have you been mowing the lawn? Look at me! You're a beautiful woman. What is your name? Michelle. Michelle! What are you looking at, Michelle? So, Michelle, you're kind of a horn dog. You know, most women like to run their fingers through their man's hair. My women want to sit on mine. Look at me. You're a beautiful woman. What is your name? Mary. Mary. Tell me, Mary, are you a virgin? I am so sure. Look! At me! You're a beautiful woman. What is your name? Janet? There's music. Thank you very much. Say it loud, and it's really obnoxious. Janet, please move your car. You're parking the alley, Janet. But the men always ask me, how do you make love to a woman? Well, it's very simple. The first thing you do is you put on some soft music like The Girl from Ipanema. And then shines in the night for Ramona's Taka. And when I extend the telescope of love, and you look into the telescope, Michelle, my darling. Do you know what I see? Amor.
First, no, I know you know. First, okay, hold on. Now this was 1987, so this is years before the Austin Powers gag. Also, you would never, ever, I repeat, never hear us play Girl from Ipanema again. So that's, hope you got that on tape. And, okay, Tim, who was the guy who was Ramona's Teka? Tim knows.
Robert Goulet.
That's close. No, it's actually not close. No, it's not him. Do we have,
Andy Kaufman.
no?
Jim Carrey.
No? 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 No, I know Mark, though. I saw him. No, here's, yes.
I don't know who he is, but he looks like the guy I saw on FTV.
Well, that may be, but I don't know if that's true. No, there's more of a direct Al connection. One more.
From UHF.
Exactly. It was John Paragon. John Paragon? Okay. Who was also, he was the nephew or the son or whatever in UHF. He was also, I think he was Cherry and John B. the Genie and some guys in Pee-wee's Playhouse.
He also co-wrote Elvira's movies.
Yes, that's right. I just, Ramon was about as far as I got with his. Okay, I actually have another video coming right up because I kind of ran out of things to say. But any questions at all? Just things burning in your heads about, looking at it and watching it here. I realize it's probably a little gamey, but you know what? We're doing it at Knott's, and there's a bunch of kids there, and it's like, this stuff could certainly pass on TV now, so it's not that bad. Any questions? Yes, Tony.
I don't do you have any footage of the wedding?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I didn't bring it.
Oh.
I shot the wedding, actually. In fact, I should see if Hal will pay me for that. In fact, I have another video coming up. This is a little more recent. Now, this is definitely post Al-Con. This is us. Actually, it's Al in the studio doing some stuff. First thing we'll see is him running through. It's not the very first vocal take, but it's a vocal take for driving a truck, and it's just him in the studio, and he's hearing the track in here, but what you're going to hear is just him singing into a mic. There's a couple other things from the studio. There's Jim and Ruben being wacky. There's also, and this is sort of a cool thing, it's the very first time ever in the studio that Al sang The Saga Begins. It's like him doing that little intro bit, and it's really the very first time he's singing it, which is kind of cool. There's us on the Santa Monica City College track, shooting the Running with Scissors cover. Al and all of us. Just quick, I mean, basically when you've seen Al run by the camera once, imagine that happening about 80 times. So I didn't bring all 80 times, but there's a couple of those to show that it took more than one time. There's also, this is actually shortly after Albuquerque, I think. Al, whenever we do a show, on Al's birthday, October 23rd, or sometimes even if we do a show near his birthday, there's always something funny that happens. And I don't know why Skip, our tour manager and lighting director, thinks it's so amusing to put a pie in Al's face, because he learned in 1994 when he put a cream pie in Al's face and it ran down into the bellows of his childhood accordion. And I've only seen Al really upset one time, and that was the time. Now he looks back at me, except the time he kicked Ruben out of the studio when he didn't know how to play the American Pie. Anyway, that's another story. Well, I'll tell you that in a second. This is a good one. It's a good one. I hope you got to all say hi and goodbye to Ruben on this last tour. No. He's forgotten, but he's not gone. No. This is no. So. And I have everything on tape. So Skip comes out, this is 1994, it's in San Francisco, and he comes out and he pies Al, and it runs down into his accordion, and the bellows are, I guess, are like leather, or, you know, and these are his original, this is his original childhood accordion, which he still takes on tour for some bizarre reason. So Al turns around and looks at me, like I cooked this up, which I did, but I didn't actually, you know, we've tried to tell Skip to not do it, you know, but yeah, so I was actually the one that cooked up the pie in the face thing and it's been a tradition that lasted the whole time. But what happened to me at that show, as Al was off getting his face and his accordion wiped off to see if it wasn't disintegrating, was he started having me do impressions. We had wireless mics at the time, and he goes off with the mic and starts having me do impressions that I've never done before. So I have a tape of that. It was very not amusing for me. So this is another pie in the face that went a little bit better. And actually what we did, this was in Ottawa, Canada, a couple of years ago, and what we did for this one was we had Kevin Shea, who was the rep from Attic Records, Al's Canadian label at the time, came out and distracted Al, had a cake. Now, Al on his birthday, like every time there's a break, there's not, you know, in the course of our show, it's pretty tight. There's very few occasions where there's a chance to get a word in. There's either a film segment or Al's got his patter. I mean, it's very hard to derail him without bringing the show to its knees, and then he starts making me do impressions. So we have to be very careful about it. And I preface every birthday with, you know, with that. I said, he's going to turn and make me do stuff, so make sure, you know. So we decide when the spots are, when he can do this. So Al kind of, at every possible opportunity, he's like waiting for something to happen, and nothing happens until after Yoda. And we get Kevin to come out with a cake, and it's very nice. And he comes out, and Al's looking at him, and then Skip comes up from the other side. So, but Al was very paranoid because he knew a pie was coming. He just didn't know when. So, because he just knows a pie's coming. And then the very last thing. Oh, yeah, and you've heard about this. We do a fun show once in a while. We didn't tell most of the crew about this, so they enjoyed it too. This was last Halloween in Poughkeepsie. Or Poughkeepsie, if you are phonetically inclined. And this is, we stuck pretty much to the show with the possible exception that every costume was different. And in some cases it was actually quite funny. Not, you know, some things were particularly funny, not just seeing him in a different costume, but seeing him do the moves in a different costume. Now, he wore the fat suit for Smells Like Nirvana. And he's wearing the guitar, so the guitar's like up here. And he throws the water, gets some on the stage, and he's prancing around. He slips on that. But better than that is he wore the Nirvana, you know, just like jeans and the shirt to do Fat. But he still went through all the moves that he does in Fat. And somebody, and I don't know who, I don't know, it might have been Amanda Deere, somebody got a picture of him grabbing his crotch that
Not me.
I don't actually know if I put it on the webpage. I showed it to Al. He says, "You going to put that on there?" I said, "I don't know." And if I did, you know, he hasn't said anything since. So. But that's the clip I included. Normally at the end of Fat, we go into just sort of like a walk-off, like just sort of a vamp for those who are musically, you know, and a version of Fat. Well, what we did, and we didn't tell Al this. No, in the first place, keep in mind that the crew doesn't know what's going on. The people backstage do because they're changing Al, and you know, there's a big discussion about what costumes could go to what costumes. So among other things, Al came out. He did like a surgeon in the stupid suit, and all of us too. Which is funny to see him, you know, writhing around in this, you know, in the big yellow suit. And he did the medley in the surgeon outfit. So you see a surgeon, and there's a picture of this on the page of him with an accordion in the surgeon outfit, which you wouldn't normally see. Well, that was a one-shot deal. That was strictly for Halloween. Now the crew out front, after probably half the show, began to understand really what was happening. So that was as much for them. But one thing that we did for Al was at the very end of Fat, instead of kind of going back into Fat so he could walk off and all that, we went into Wipeout, a legitimate version of Wipeout. As opposed to the version of Wipeout that we did where we played like in different keys and more or less in different tempos as a prelude to Albuquerque. That probably pissed people off more than anything, was that version of Wipeout. So, well, we did it again, we did a real version. And Al, who usually gets derailed pretty easily because, you know, if things don't go exactly, he fell in pretty good. I mean, he knew something was going on. It took him a few seconds to figure out what, and then he was like right there with it. So, you know, at the end of all these things, that's what you do see. And I included the entire Fat with him just kind of in more or less normal clothes. And he also didn't really adjust any of his moves. So his arms are like way out here, like he's got a big suit on. And it's weird to see him do all these overt motions just in in regular clothes, so you can sort of get a glimpse of what goes on inside that fat suit when he's up there, as well as some other amusing things. And then wipe out at the end, and oh yes, one more thing that also Al did not know about, and the crew didn't know about. At the very end, and I think I just put a picture up on the website, for Saga Begins, I come out in the little whatever mask. I didn't see the movie, so I don't know what to call it, but anyway, and whatever the kid wore, I get one of these and come out on my knees, short, kind of wander out, and Al knows something's going on, and he won't look at me. He won't look, because he's afraid, he told me he can't do it, because he'll crack up. So that's like the last thing you'll see. And then I'll kind of wrap up. And actually, I don't know what time it is, but who's has the time? Okay. 33? Oh, that's one less minute. Okay. I do actually have another video segment that I'll go ahead and run as well. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But anyway, so this is some stuff in the studio. This is all pretty recent. Nobody's seen this. Nobody's got this. Al hasn't seen this. This is from my tape. And so if I see this anywhere, you, and you, and you, and that. And him with the little husky. Okay, whatever. Okay, so this is studio and some other antics and some wild junk, and I'll see you in a couple minutes.
Oh yes, this is one captured.
I'm driving a truck, driving a big old truck, pedal to the metal, hope I don't run out of luck. Rolling down the highway until the break of dawn, driving a truck with my high heels on. My diesel rig is northward bound, it's time to put that hammer down, just watching as the miles go flying by. I'm riding 20 tons of steel, but it's sure hard to hold the wheel while I'm still waiting for my nails to dry. Oh, I always gotta check my lipstick in that rearview mirror, and my pink Angora sweater fits so tight. I'm jamming gears and hauling freight, well I sure hope my seams are straight, Lord don't let my mascara run tonight. Because I'm driving a truck, driving a big old truck. Smoky's on my tail and my accelerator stuck. Got these 18 wheels a-rolling until the break of dawn. Driving a truck with my high heels on.
Not much distracts Al, you know. He knows I'm sitting there with the camera in the room with him together.
Oh, I don't mind when my crotchless panties creep right up on me, and my nipple rings don't bother me too much. But when I hit those big speed bumps, my darling little rhinestone pumps keep slipping off the mother-loving clutch. But still I'm driving a truck, driving a big old truck, heading down the interstate just trying to make a buck. Wearing feather boas with sequins and chiffon while I'm driving a truck with my high heels on. I'm driving a truck, driving a truck. Got a load to carry and some eyebrows left to pluck, and I'm late for my appointment down at the hair salon. So I'll be driving a truck with my high heels on. That's
Now you may find it inconceivable, or at the very least a bit unlikely, that the relative position of the planets and the stars could have a special deep significance or meaning that exclusively applies to only you. But let me give you my assurance that these forecasts and predictions are all based on solid scientific documented evidence. So you would have to be some kind of moron not to realize that every single Democrat is have to look at your, where was I?
Sort of goth country. That's it. George Jones. He'd love it if he was still alive.
You're on camera.
Put that out. Is there sound?
Yes.
Right, I'm playing American Pop. That's what I feel like when I play American Pop. I'd like to see you on tour today.
A long, long time ago, in a galaxy far away, Naboo was under an attack. And I thought me and Qui-Gon Jinn could talk the Federation into maybe cutting them a little slack. But their response, it didn't thrill us. They locked the doors and tried to kill us. We escaped from that gas and met Jar Jar and Boss Nass. We took a bungo from the scene and we went to Thee to see the Queen. We all wound up on Tatooine. That's where we found this boy. Let's check that with, let's play that with the original scratch track and see how rough it is.
Using the 300 fixed, 300 to 8.
For you to just completely do it. You just, oh, you just hit the cover.
Right.
Now, when you compose a song for shows, do you have
Let's get everyone in the finish point. Al, get on your mark, please.
lot funnier there, you know. Got the benefit of a couple of generations of video. Anyway, I'm going to get back to this Ruben Saga Begins thing because I meant to tell you about that. But just real quick, I meant to point out that when we pie Al for his birthday, the important thing is that the accordion not be on him, and there's even less spots in the show where he's not wearing the accordion, you know, and is, you know, pieable. So that was, you know, we basically had to wait until the end of the show. There was no other time where he could be had where it wouldn't actually disrupt the show. So that's what happened there. Also the fat suit, that was another during where Al's out in the Nirvana outfit. Mongo comes out and the fat suit, and Al didn't know what that was happening either. So that was a surprise for Al. And he kicked him so hard, and you couldn't tell, but he went all the way off to the side of the stage and into Jim, off the side and into Jim's amp. I mean, he just perfect slide. It was great. I'm sorry? Oh no, he was kicked pretty hard and just. That was all in good fun. I mean, Al likes a joke, except when when he knows about it, he likes it. Okay, I do have one more video, and I'm going to wrap up here real quick. Now, Ruben. So we go in the studio to record The Saga Begins. Now, this is the single, you know, and he's been working with us for long enough at that point. No, actually, I should rephrase that. He actually has been working with us long enough. No, all these jokes I'm making about Ruben, you know, I'm kidding. We like him, and I saw him the other day, in fact, and he's fine. He's pretty much he's in as good graces with us as he ever was. So, you know, nothing's really changed. So he comes in. Now, Ruben has recorded with us. We've also used some other keyboard players in the studio. And Ruben knows, we thought he knew, that on the parodies, there's really no leeway for interpretation. The part's got to be like the original, you know, unless Al says something different, you know, like I'm going to do an accordion solo instead of this. I mean, that would be the only, but Al has to say that. Otherwise, we know the drill. And we thought Ruben did too. Anyway, so we come in to record The Saga Begins, and Ruben starts noodling around on the piano, and he doesn't know it. Or he knows it, but he's like doing it a different way or something. And Al chewed him out pretty good and sent him home to learn the part, and we went on and did something else. And he sent him home the next day too, because he still didn't, because it's actually a very hard part. And Al's really persnickety, so everything that Al, you know, certain words and syllables that Al would say had to be like the right inflection with the piano, and it's all very loose, it's not to tempo. I mean, it's just very, you know, we imagine Don McLean was sitting there with the keyboard player, or maybe even, I don't know if he's that good a piano player, but it was very loose. And to copy something and make it that loose, you know, to take something and be as organic as they were 28 years ago about it, that's very hard to do. It was really hard for Ruben. And Al chewed him out a couple of times before he finally came back and got it. And this went on the road, too, for a long time, like through the last week. It's, you know, when I sing this line, you have to be here with this piano thing and so. And so Al's really, he's a tough boss in that respect, but it's so that things work and sound good and all that. So there's a reason behind it, but Ruben always seems to be the one who doesn't quite get it, you know, even though he knows, he's supposed to know. So that was the deal on the Ruben thing. I was going to tell you about that before. So he got thrown out of the studio, basically. Anyway, but he came back and he eventually played it right. Anyone want to hear about my internet experience real quick? Okay, real quick, I got online for the first time in '93. I was on Prodigy. Chatted with the radioactive hamsters from a planet near Mars, the RHPNM group, which you were?
I was one of them.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay. I remember Corey, and there was a couple of others. Fishy, Mary McMine, who went by Fishy for some. Anyway, I don't. With the exception of Joe, I don't really know what happened to those guys. But I stayed online ever since, and went to several different ISPs and you know, all that. But basically, you know, once I was able to actually get a proper web browser and see Marty's pages and you know, some of the other great pages that were out there, I decided to do a page, and that was '95. It was August of '95, and that's how WeirdAl.com got started. So I've done that ever since, and that's that. And I mean, I've always been a fan of the computer, so I was very at home, you know, working with it and doing that stuff. Really, you guys know that we had a couple of busy years, extremely busy years. In fact, we did fully 25% of our live shows ever in the last 18 months. And, you know, over 17 years of touring, to do that many just in a 16, 18-month period is we were very busy, and a number of you were at a number of shows, I think, too, so some of you look very familiar. And you all, yeah, actually, all of you look pretty familiar. I saw you when I was up here talking 10 minutes ago, I think. This year we have off, as you know, Al got married. I know somebody's dying to ask the question, so I'm going to just tell you very quickly. It was a very quiet ceremony. It was no big deal. No media. No, you didn't read about it in People or or Billboard even. I mean, none of the media was alerted. I mean, it was not that big of a deal. It's a private deal. Al's private life is private, and that's it. I do have video of that. He shot a couple of videos of that. He's going to put it together one of these days, and just to have, but. I was one of the people that shot a video of that. I mean, it's not appropriate to have brought it, so I didn't bring it. But I want to talk a little bit about the wedding. There really weren't any stars there. I mean, Al and the band were probably as big stars as anyone else who was there. Dr. Demento was there. I mean, that's, he's a star. Emo Phillips was there. Billy Mooney was there. And Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers was there. That was, no, Chad Smith. No, Chad Smith was there, though. No, Terry Carr.
You're thinking of Victoria Jackson.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot about her. Anyway, she was there. So it was a very, it was mostly family, a couple of friends, a lot of people I was very surprised to not see there. A lot of people that I thought figured prominently in Dementia and in his career, but it's just not possible to invite everybody you know and everybody you meet and everybody that ever, played a part on an album or sent you a Christmas card. It's not possible to do that. So it was small, it was nice, it was short, it was sweet, and that was it. And Suzanne, I don't know if anyone's actually met Suzanne. She's a sweetheart, and we're very happy for Al. And no, his career is not going to stop or slow down or change in any way, shape, or form. A number of people in the band and crew are married. Hasn't changed what we do. It's not going to change what he does. So yes, there will be a new album eventually. And he's dying to get started on it. So hopefully later this year he'll get going, and with any luck we'll have something out next year and go out and tour another 200 shows or something like that. During the year off, everyone wants to know what we're doing, and some of you I think I've emailed with my grand project, which has actually been going on a while. A couple of years ago, actually in '96, I went to listen to an old Al tape that I have, an old cassette from '82, '83, and it was just sludgy, it was mushy, wouldn't run properly. And what happens to tapes is the formula on there, if they're not stored properly, and I'm a drummer, so what do I know? So, they get moist and they get sludgy and they leave residue on the head, or they stick to the tape head and they don't want to run properly. And this was stuff where I had the only copies, really, like I do for so many things. So I thought, one, I've lost this tape and things that I'll never hear again. And two, I better get busy archiving the rest of the stuff. I didn't have a CD burner at the time. They were quite expensive, so I went with mini disc. Not the smartest thing to do, but I did, take care of some things. Anyway, eventually, 5 years later, I'm actually archiving all of this stuff for real. Learned how to bake tapes, which means you basically take the moisture out of them, and found that tape that was trash 5 years ago played perfectly. So I got that stuff back. I've got Al's Porta Studio, and I've got his original masters for everything. All that stuff is going into Pro Tools, and for some future, I don't know, just in case, we'll be able to mix that stuff properly. And the reason I wanted to do that, who has Basement Tapes number 9 from Dr. Demento? Okay, the version of Rocky Road on there was a version that I mixed when I was home for one day last October. And there was not time to really make it stereo, there wasn't time to EQ things. I mean, I basically made a mono mix. That wasn't the original mix. And I thought, well, you know what, somebody's got to preserve this stuff, just because Barry's going to ask another time. He says, oh, can you give me a mix of this song? We want to put this demo on. And I want to have that stuff so I can actually work with it. So in Pro Tools, you can actually split things up, EQ things properly, make it a proper stereo mix without having to have two people with 4 little knobs say, okay, now this part of the song has to be this low and this, pan this over here. Because mixing stuff like that was a nightmare for Al. So, and I wasn't about to let that be a nightmare for me, so I shot out a mono mix of that. And in future, when Barry needs those things for Basement Tapes, they'll be there. And if there's ever a time where Al wants to release that stuff, and there's not going to be, there's not. But if there is, it's done. It's preserved. The tapes can burn up now, and we're set. So everything has been halted in its tracks. Nothing will age any worse. That's my project for this year, and however much next year I get. It's a very, very, very tedious project. And usually if I'm chatting with someone on Instant Messenger or IRC or something, and I'm not there. I'm working on archives, and not just Al stuff, of course. I mean, I've got hundreds of hours of stuff that I've done, demos and other live gigs with other bands. All that stuff's going on CD as well. So that's my project for the year, and it's extremely time-consuming, but it's kind of a labor of love, somewhat, you know. And it's weird to hear some of these things I hadn't heard in sometimes 20, 25 years. And also satisfy the need to ever hear them again in some cases. And I'm hearing them, putting them to disc, it's like, I probably don't really even need to save that, I've heard it, that's it. But I'm not making those decisions now. You know, CDs are, good CDs are a couple of bucks, it's not a big deal. And all that stuff's being preserved. So Al's stuff, my stuff, in 20, 30 years, whatever, will be there. And, should there ever be a need to have that stuff out, it'll be there. Real quick, I do have one more video thing to show you. This is how many people just sort of came on board with Weird Al, like in the last tour, like since Running with Scissors. Is there anyone who has not seen a tour before that? Okay, all right. What this is coming up is this is our medley from 1997. Now, these medleys obviously evolve, and as I mentioned before, songs make it in and out of the medleys for various reasons. Sometimes we'll bring a song back from the past and put it in the medley, but as each album comes out and as things come out that Al writes specifically for medleys, we could do a 2-hour medley and still not do everything we ever had in the medley. So things, come and go and come and go. At Hair Day album on that tour, we had a medley that included a few things from that album that we didn't play the entire song of. And because it's just not possible to play every song, in every show. So some things are just put in just to kind of satisfy that need to actually play it. So Phony Calls was in there, Cavity Search was in there, a couple of other things. Plus, and you had asked what the other favorite song was, I think, Tony. No, Lee, you asked. And God, I'm still good. And this medley is Gee, I'm a Nerd, which is, it's interesting to, for whoever knows, I'm a major Beatles fan, so that gives me my Ringo fix. Also, I just really like doing that. Jim does some great guitar work on there, and we actually sing decent backups. This is the version that's got us singing pretty good. So on this video, this video coming up was taken from, this was the Arizona State Fair in October of '97. This is the video that they had like a 3-camera shoot and that they would show up on the screen. Now by the same token, whenever we would run a video, that went up on the screen and therefore that's what you're going to see here. So this was essentially like what was happening on the screens. And if we had, like in Cavity Search, there's the whole sequence with the teeth. And for whoever has not seen that, it's really, I wouldn't watch it, and I'm not going to watch it now. Because I actually did have a root canal and had a molar extracted the holiday season after that. So I will not, I still can't watch that. But I gave my dentist the song, and I said, this is what I was thinking when you were doing the root canal on me. So anyway, so some things in there seem to like just go black, or we go away and a film appears. That's why that happens. So there's things in there like, and the sound is kind of uneven as well. So sorry about that. You know what? I didn't actually write down what's in there, but Gee, I'm a Nerd is in there. Cavity Search, Phony Calls. Some other stuff. It's pretty different from what you guys saw on this last tour, and that happens almost every year. It just evolves. So I thought maybe this was a medley you guys hadn't seen before. This was also something that I don't think was in the Disney special, because there's some stuff in there that is probably unreleased or unreleasable or something like that. So that's it. So coming up, medley from 1987, and then I'll wrap up after that.
87.
97.
Or 97, same thing. They don't change that much.
You gotta keep them separated. separated. Hey! Are your cottons gonna shrink? Sort them out! Got to keep them separated. Hey! Then when it's time, you just stick a little corner, you can hang 'em on the line. Hey! It's laundry day! When we were young, Bernie's deli was down the block. He made a great liver pate. You know we did, you know we did, you know we did. But if there's one thing in this world that we like better than corned beef on rye, it's chicken pot pie. Chicken pot pie. Spam in the place where you live. Think about nutrition, wonder what's inside it now. Spam in my lunchbox at work. Really makes a darn good sandwich any way you slice it at all. If you're running low, go to the store. Carry some money to help you buy more. The cap is there to open the can. The can is there to hold in the spam. Now spam in the back of my car. Spam anywhere that you are. The cap is there to open the can. The can is there to hold in the spam hole.
the bus on the boulevard, and the place was pretty packed. Well, couldn't find a seat, so I had to stand with the perverts in the back. It was smelling like a locker room. There was junk all over the floor. We're already packed in like sardines, but we're stopping to pick up more. Look out! Another one rides the bus. Another one rides the bus. And another comes on, and another comes on. Another one rides the bus. Hey, he's gonna sit by you. Another one rides the bus. I'm a nerd.
I would not like them here or there, I would not like them anywhere. I will not go not on a boat, I will not go out with a goat. I will like them in the rain, I do not like them on a train. I do not like them in a box, I will not eat them with a fox. I could not, would not in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them Sam. I am
Green eggs and ham. Green eggs and ham. Don't like green eggs and ham. And so eat it. Don't wanna argue, I don't wanna debate. Don't wanna hear about what kind of food you hate. You won't get no dessert till you clean off your plate. So eat it. Don't you tell me you're full, just eat it. Eat it. Get yourself an egg and beat it. Have some more chicken, have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's spoiled or fried. Just eat it. Open up your mouth and eat it. Have some more yogurt, have some more spam. It doesn't matter if it's fresh or canned. Just eat it. Don't you make me repeat it. Have a banana, have a whole bunch. It doesn't matter what you have for lunch. Just eat it. Just eat it. Just eat it.
Okay. Yeah, so that was a little crisp. It was a little loud. Sorry. Not, you know, this was recorded from a $99 VCR to an $89 VCR. So it's amazing that came out that clear. And the reason it's that clear is because I'm the only one that actually has the tape. So that and that and that and that. And, you guys, if that shows up, I know. No, Al doesn't even have that. Thank you. No, actually, in closing, this whole dementia thing, and I mean, you know, not just Al, but I mean, specifically Dr. Demento's really been responsible for all the good things and a couple of, you know, Ruben I mentioned. Okay, he's really directly and indirectly. I mean, Al directly and kind of indirectly, you know, the whole Westwood One thing, because that's what I've been doing for 20 years. It's been Westwood One. It's been Weird Al. and hopefully for the next 20 years as well. So dementia is a good thing. Maybe one of these days we'll get Dr. Demento out here to tell him yourself, and that's it. So that's the end of my deal. Real quick, any questions? Tony, yes.
Is Weird Al going to surprise us by coming out now?
He's not even going to surprise you by coming out later. No, this is, well, first off, let me explain, this is not about Al.
All right.
So,
well, Dr. Demento then.
He's not coming out either. I mean, if he was going to be here, do you think No surprises, I'm sorry. Well, that's not a surprise either, but I'm sorry, Bill. Bill's the man.
I'm the court jester, yes, I'm the Bill Jester.
Anyway, so that's questions. Yes, Kevin.
Can you talk a little bit about the preparation that takes place prior to a show or a tour in regards to the stage show itself?
Yeah, the question was kind of what goes on to prepare for the tour, the stage and, everything, all the coordination. Basically, Al decides what we're doing, decides what order it's going to be in. In the case of the medley, he spells those out to us. In some cases, actually in the past, he used to record those. Those are going to CD as well. The accordion versions of what the medley was going to be that year, yeah, those are all being saved. As far as the show, first off, Jim and Steve and I and Al have been doing some of these songs for, I've been doing some of these with Al for just over 20 years. And Jim and Steve came along, it's been a while. In rehearsing a tour, even in the case of this last tour, where essentially 50% of the material was brand new to us, to our show, from the tour before, that would seem like a lot to work on. We rehearsed about a week to do that stuff. Now don't forget, we already knew half the show. And we had just, in some cases, just recorded, most of the stuff in the other half of the show. So it was a question of just kind of putting it in order, coordinating it. As far as costumes and all that stuff, Al makes all those decisions, coordinates with some of the designers, and some of whom have been with us for a while. Terry King, and actually Terry King has been with us for quite a while. And she cooks up those costumes. Sometimes they're the ones used in the video, not always. Because the video costume, sometimes there's close-ups, you can see a lot of detail. On stage, it's rare that somebody would get within 20 feet and be able to see stitching, things like that. And in the stage costumes, a lot of them have to be fitted with Velcro for quick change. I mean, some of these changes are very, very fast. And if you wonder how Al is able to get into the fat suit and, with boots and a shirt and the face mask, he's got help doing that. These things go very, very quick. There's really not much time to spare. So, and a lot of thought goes into that, and that's why Al puts together some of the film segments that he does. Later in the tour, and this past tour, we had a couple of changes. MGM read a review of our Greek theater show in September of '99, the part about how there were UHF clips interspersed. Well, they own UHF. And they were not that thrilled about that. I know Al addressed this in the Ask Al, so I can tell you about it. They were not thrilled. And I think they wanted to back charge Al for as long as he had been doing that. So Al said, just cut a new tape without the UHF in it. So that's how some of the other clips from Al TVs and stuff like that made it in, which actually adds a little variety to a show which is essentially the same from start to finish. You could count on the film being different 6 months later. And Al also took that opportunity where if he found himself sitting backstage, waiting in a costume for the film to end before his cue, he tightened some of those up too. It's like, let's make it a little bit tighter, so maybe the film had been longer in the first place and we just didn't have the opportunity to change it. When he does have the opportunity, he does try and tighten up, because he wants the show to move a little bit better. But Al works all that stuff out, times things out, and sort of mentally goes through the costume changes. And that's why the film clips are set up the way they are. Of course, I go in and there's different things happening with the film clips. Sometimes there's audio flying off of them to the audience. And, basically, to say a good thing about Ruben, he and I pretty much control the show. In case you guys are not aware of all the things you hear, they're not all coming from a guitar player and a bass player and Al, not playing anything. It's Ruben and I control like 90% of the show. So there's a lot of preparation and a lot of pre-preparation that goes into putting that stuff together. And I will go in when they're assembling the videos and tell them specific count-offs, tell them, I need this on here, we need this there. Al will decide. Sometimes there's special mixes. Germs was one of several mixes that was made, and we use that as part of the track in the concert. Because there's too much going on, there's too much production in there. I don't think 9 Inch Nails even uses, they just do the whole thing, on a track. it's we at least give it a good try. But there's a lot of that goes in, and I'm involved to a great extent on that because I have to coordinate with the films. I have to sync the band up with those things. So I'm involved in some of that too, but again, it's under Al's direction. So it's all Al. I mean, Al invents and runs and creates and calls that show. And everything you see up there, that's good is from Al, and everything that you see that's bad is because Ruben, for instance, has decided to do something different that night, and stuff like that. Or one night, I got to talk about Ruben here. Because you guys, you've seen the show, so you know what a screwball he is to begin with. One night we're out, Al says before the show, he says, we're not doing Surgeon tonight. And I said, why not? He says, well, Ruben doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to wear the cone bra. I said, God, that's great that we get to decide what you're going to do on stage. You know what? That's wonderful. I'm going to tell you tomorrow what I don't want to play. And Ruben did eventually put the cone bra back on when Al reminded him, who's in charge of the show. And anyway, so in terms of the way the show runs, it's all Al. And sometimes there's some things we'll throw in just to try and be funny. And Al will keep the funny ones, and he will let us know immediately, that that's not working. And if we try it again, he says, didn't I tell you before that that's not working? And I've heard that one. Anyway, so that's it's all Al. And those things happen, rehearsals and stuff like that, and sort of putting it all together and bringing the crew out so they can see what we're doing is anywhere from a week to 10 days. So it actually gets thrown together very quick, but Al's got it all spelled out, and most of the crew's been with us since '92, so they know what the drill is too on a lot of that stuff. Some things are just going to be in that show forever, like One More Minute's going to be there, for a while, I assume. And one version or another of Like a Surgeon is probably going to be in there, because Al just likes to perform certain things. There's certain things he likes to do. So, they pretty much know what's going on. So to make a short answer long, it's, Al puts that all together, and it all finally comes together with all of us in one place in anywhere from 7 to 10 days, most of which are spent just eating pizza or whatever. We usually run through most of the show in one day, one time in a day, and eat pizza the rest of the time. So that's any other questions? Tim?
Very green eggs and ham. There's a spoon that goes in Al's mouth. Is there anything on that spoon?
Probably. What I see, I'm behind Al, so I don't see what's going on. And the guy, by the way, who's doing the shtick behind him, that's Mongo. I'll tell you about Mongo in a second as well. But Mongo's a stage manager, and Mongo his actual name is Mongo, but we call him Mongo. So he was the guy behind and doing the ropes thing. And in case you don't know, it's a parody of U2's Numb video, where there's just kind of like a weird, quiet, pseudo-industrial track going on, and all these things happen to Bono, I guess. So that's what that. So that was Mongo back there. As far as there probably is, it's probably baby food or something, because that comes out of a baby food jar. So there's probably something there, because he's probably hungry at that point in the show. He only gets one spoon. So. Yes. Lee.
Well, it's about a decade late, but after hearing Free as a Bird and hearing you talk about being a Beatles fan, George Harrison is known for being pretty serious, and I've been dying to know for the last decade or so what he thought about the parody of, I can't even think of his lyrics, Got My Mind Set on You.
Well, it wasn't his song, so he wasn't actually, obviously he was known for doing that song, but that wasn't actually his song. It was Rudy something, who's from, was it from the late 50s, early 60s? He's an English guy. And that sounds nothing like the George Harrison version. I mean, it's easy to see why that was never a hit. But no, George was not, I don't know that we ever heard from him. Actually, we did hear from him when Demento started playing Pac-Man. We heard from him, and he said, stop playing that. So, now this was a year after, John had been killed and all that, and nobody was very amused by anything. So, that's kind of understandable. We did actually play Pac-Man live once or twice. It didn't work out, but there's a bunch of stuff we tried once or twice. But we haven't heard from George on that, so I don't know. He's supposed to have a good sense of humor, so.
It's an odd sense of humor.
We'll see.
I just didn't know, I didn't even realize that wasn't his song, so.
No, it's not, but it was Rudy Clark? That'd be a good trivia question.
I'll get out of it.
No. But that was not George's song, so it wasn't really an issue, and we didn't hear back. So, and he probably thought, oh, Al's at it again, with this whole Pac-Man thing from less than 10 years before. So, yes, Becca.
About the condom that was in the I Don't Love You Anymore music video.
Oh, you don't love me anymore?
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a condom in there.
Yeah.
There was.
It was the...
Wow, I'm not familiar with it, but go ahead, I don't know.
It's on the golf club.
Well, I wanted to ask you for the story about that, but seeing as how you don't know.
This is the first I'm hearing about. What is it?
As it pays past, then there's a golf club, and then there's
apparently a set designer had put it on, and he said he was terribly unhappy with it.
I never heard of this.
But
I don't know.
But it was too. But by the time he noticed it, was too late to change. So.
Yeah, it's like there just for a second.
Wow, that's the first I've heard of it.
Watch the video again.
Now I gotta go watch the DVD. I wouldn't have normally watched it.
Watch it and.
Any other questions about stuff I do know about?
Are you not nifty?
Yes. No. Anyway, and Luke has a question. Luke has a mic as well, so you can actually hear this question.
Well, I ran over here because I thought you were wrapping up, and I was like, oh, okay. A couple questions. First was, from the video, did Al do anything special to prepare for singing Truck Driving Song? To be that low?
No, he just sang low.
Oh, okay.
sang in his low voice.
All right. And the other thing was, you mentioned earlier the driving project. You said Al's not going to release any of the early Al stuff. Will John be re-releasing any of the John stuff on like
no
special? Okay.
Well, most of that stuff, with the exception of just a couple of things which are on the Binge and Purge CD.
Binge and Purge.
That's right, Binge and Purge. None of those things are mine. So I mean, I can't really release somebody else's stuff for any reason. I mean. And almost none of that stuff has been released. So no, that's really not, that's not right.
Okay.
And most of it's not very listenable. I mean, it's fun for me because I can remember being in the studio or wherever I was in that life, in life at that point. So I mean, it brings back certain memories. But no, I don't think most of that stuff's releasable. Yes.
Since you've been doing you've been on live for so long and really doing the website for 6 years, with the development of the web, especially over the past 3 or 4 years, have you noticed any change in terms of, say, career growth, in terms of the success of the tour, in terms of...
Oh, the question is about with people being online and the web and all that, and the website being there. Is that affected the tours at all, or else popularity as well? It absolutely has. I mean, people learn about shows long before the promoters tell anybody. And I've gotten many emails and seen many posts regarding, I called this venue that's listed on the website, and they say they don't know anything about this show. Now, the deal behind that, and they don't. They're not, part of the deal behind that is they only give you so much notice. We know way in advance when we're playing. A lot of venues and promoters will only release that information, in dribs and drabs for, they may want to have people spend their money on some other artist first, and then when they're done spending on that, they announce the next wave of artists, rather than telling you up front that Al's going to be there in 8 months. And you save your money and you don't go to, the other concerts in between. They kind of dole it out, and stuff like that. I think that's part of the reason that happens. But in terms of getting the word out there, and Al has in interviews definitely credited me with, with a lot of the sellouts that have happened that would not normally have happened because we didn't really have the success. We had the success on a smaller level, but we didn't have it as consistently and as with the longevity that we've had it, particularly in the last year and a half. But since '96, it's a different ballgame. The web has been pretty amazing. And it's amazing that we can do the things we do with a website that's basically static, straight, simple HTML, and. But it's there to be read. It's there to be informative. There's no games. There's no chat. It's just the information's there for people to enjoy and read, see where we're playing, see what we're doing. Find out when Al's going to be on TV, perhaps, if it's something he wants to tell people about. Al basically tells me what goes on the site. There's a lot of things that don't go on the site, And people ask about it. Oh, I read this about it. I said, well, Al didn't tell me to put it on. So I work under his direction on that as well. So that's why some things are very obviously absent from the site. Yes, Chris.
Any thoughts on, you talked about longevity, in the comedy field, I mean, not only crossing over to mainstream success, But any thoughts on approaching the kind of longevity that you guys are that would rival like a Ray Stevens or you know, guys who have become classics in the field? I mean, you guys are going on the amount of time that you have, being successful on a continuous basis and you know, going very well. Any thoughts on the fact that you guys are getting that kind of longevity now?
Well, I mean, we're extremely grateful. We're a little surprised. I mean, it's the fans, obviously, that make it. You know, it's all of you guys. It's, you know, other people that buy the album when it comes out. I mean, you know, part of that, and I must have said something about this on the Behind the Music special. Oh, I forgot to talk about that. But you guys have all seen that, so that's no good. I will tell you that they filmed me for 2 hours and used about 20 seconds, so whatever. In fact, Al was lucky to get on there at all. Joel Miller, who's one of Al's dearest friends, was also Al's best man, by the way. Talked a lot about Al, but he was there before me, and you know, has that angle to talk about, and you know, the rest of us just sort of picked him up in 1980 and went from there. But I think what I said was, as long as, you know, people enjoy, you know, we're always current. You know, because we're always parodying, we're always right on top of what people are sort of listening to anyway. So as long as the joke about making fun of something, which people do all the time anyway, as long as that is there, you know, and we're there to do it, unless this guy, you know, comes up and, I mean, he's next. If you need a drummer, you know. But no, there's some up and coming. Oh, Chris, you know, he's not going to be there forever, you know. And Ray Stevens, I mean, Ray's been great. I mean, I used to listen to his stuff, you know, Ahab the Arab, and you know, that stuff. And it's ironic though, he's got a ton of albums out, but they're all compilations. I mean, a ton of albums, maybe like 50 albums, and there are maybe only like 7 original albums or something, or 8 or something. But no, it's that would be great to have that kind of longevity. Now, as far as will Al actually do any kind of serious stuff? I mean, Ray Stevens was doing a couple of serious things way back. You know, he wasn't just a funny guy the whole time. He got more serious later on. Will Al ever do that? I don't think so. I don't see it. That's not what people want from him. They say they do, you know, a handful of people do. But no, I don't think that's, you know, as long as Al's doing the thing and people want to hear it, we will keep doing it. And I don't think age is going to be an issue. A lot of people, you know, a lot of the kids are not listening to guys in their 40s. And, you know, but they listen to us. So, which is nice. You know, you know, there's a lot of elderly rockers out there, so it's nice that we're in there. You know, their careers are not over, so you know, we'll definitely be there too. Any other questions? I think what they want me to do is I'm going to sit back there and sign autographs and shake hands, and if you want to take a picture or something, you know, I'll be happy to do that. And I guess that's it. So thank you for having me, and Bill and Luke and Ken and all the rest.
If you don't mind, I wanted to say something up here really quick before you head back to the table. It's safe to assume everyone in here went to see the last concert and probably waited after the show to see Al and get an autograph and stuff like that, right? Okay. I had something happen to me about a week and a half ago, and it just kind of it was the kind of situation where it made me realize something I already knew, but it just kind of really fine-tuned it in my mind, and I went like, whoa. I went to see the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, which is Jeff Foxworthy, Bill Engvall, Larry the Cable Guy, and Ron White. And it was a great show, and I have Jeff Foxworthy's and Bill Engvall's CDs, so I brought them with me, and I brought a Sharpie marker, and Stephanie's my fiance, you all probably know her by now. She's a stagehand, and she was working that show, so I got to kind of be, it was in an arena concert, so it wasn't like backstage, it was just kind of off to the side. But it was right where the guys were going to be exiting. So the show ends, Steph says, well, go stand outside and see if you can get their autograph. I went, I stood outside the door. It was literally like, there's the door, there's the back end of the limo, and I stood like right in the middle. I had the CD with the tray card out, you know, marker in hand, uncapped, standing there, and I'm just kind of like, with that look on my face, like, you know, that says, hi, I'm a fan and I would like your autograph, please, if you don't mind, sir. And all 4 of them just came out, they were talking to promoters, hey, okay, see you, got in the thing and just drove off. And it's like, I'm not saying like, oh, they're jerks for not doing, you know, getting my autograph, you know, but it just...
You know, I'm sorry, Luke brings up a very good point here. Where's my limo?
Oh. that was Bill's job. But the point, I mean, I'm not saying that those guys were jerks for that time. It just kind of made me realize it's like, you know, a lot of acts, you know, both music and comedy don't have to take the time that John and Al and the crew do to make allowances for us. And we should really appreciate what they do for us. And the fact that, I mean, John came out here just as a favor to hang out with us and have some fun. So just appreciate it, and I wish I had like a big medal or a trophy or a physical representation of our appreciation of you guys.
A big check, baby.
Well, we had to write a check to Larry Weaver last night, so we were kind of, no, just kidding. But anyway, thanhanks very much for everything, and thanks for coming.
Thanks everyone for having me and putting up with this very disjointed presentation. I'm sorry. Those of you that videotape it, you can re-edit it in the proper order. It will actually flow the you and I'm going to go back. I have Sharpies. I didn't bring any photos. I'm sorry. So if you have a slip of paper or a CD or whatever, you know, I'd be happy to sign it.
Okay. Well, we have one little thing before you guys get up. John, you can head back there. We have one little thing to present. I haven't even heard this yet. Apparently, the mighty Jeff Morris got Dr. Demento to record a little greeting for all of us here at the convention. So basically, while they kind of take a second or two to get John set up back there, we're going to have Jeff play it for us. I haven't heard it, and I'm assuming it's really cool. Are you ready to go?
The doctor is in.
Hi, this is Dr. Demento, and I'm hoping you're having the hottest and coolest time at Dementia 2001. I know you're hearing some great music this weekend, seeing a lot of old friends, making some new ones. And I'm so sorry I couldn't be with you in person, but I'm very deeply honored that you have all gathered to salute and celebrate Demented entertainment in all its forms. I hope the rest of the weekend goes incredibly well for everyone. Again, thank you all for coming and for all your support of the Dr. Demento Show through the years. And I hardly need to add, don't forget to stay demented.
All right, everyone, let me run you through what we're doing right now. John is setting up, where's his table, Steph? Is it right back there? Okay, basically everyone needs to make a single file line, I'm assuming starting over here and going, oh, right here, okay, sorry. The line will be right along this aisle here and I guess curve in front of the stage so that you can, you know, get your autographs and stuff with John. After you get your autograph with John, that's the beginning of the dinner break, and it's now 4:42. Our big showcase for tonight starts at 6. So once you get done with your autograph with John, we need you to leave the room and go have your dinner break wherever you can get dinner. I think, is there a restaurant here at the hotel?
Yes. You want me to
Okay, there's
keep
2
those
restaurants here,
CDs
whatever.
that you
Whatever
got
your
for
plans
you?
are for food, just go have food. We're going to set up for the show, starting with Robin Necula. Okay. Well, anyway, tonight's big show starts at 6 p.m. So just after you see John get your autograph, just head out, get some food, and just be back here for 6 o'clock for the big show, okay? And that's it. Everyone.
If I just sneak in and